If your best friend became one of the richest people in the world tomorrow, what do you think would change first? Your bank account, your lifestyle, your future? Most people would say yes, but they're wrong. The very first thing that changes isn't your money. It's everyone else's behavior. People who never noticed you suddenly know your name. Old friends you haven't heard from in years start calling again. Strangers smile at you for no reason. Everyone suddenly wants to be close to you. Not because of who you are, but because of who your best friend has become. Then, one ordinary morning, your phone vibrates. A single message appears. Come outside. You smile, expecting to see your best friend waiting on his old motorcycle, the same rusty bike you've ridden together hundreds of times. But as you step outside, you freeze. Parked in front of your apartment is a matte black supercar. Behind it are 3 black luxury SUVs. Men in tailored suits stand silently beside them. One of them walks towards you, opens the rear door, looks directly into your eyes, and quietly says, "He's waiting for you." Just 1 year ago, your best friend was asking if you could lend him money to pay his rent. Today, people call him Sir. As you step inside the car, you have no idea that this single ride is about to change the way you see money, success, and friendship forever. Everyone dreams about becoming rich. But almost nobody asks a much more interesting question. What's it really like to be the best friend of someone who has everything? Today, you'll step into a life filled with private jets, luxury mansions, celebrity parties, and unforgettable experiences. But you'll also discover something most people never see. Because sometimes, standing beside a billionaire can change your life just as much as becoming one. Before the headlines. Before the billion-dollar company. Before bodyguards followed every step. There were just 2 ordinary friends. You met in school. Neither of you came from wealth. You shared lunches because buying 2 wasn't always possible. You walked home together after class, played football until sunset, and dreamed about buying your parents a better home one day. Back then, life felt simple. Success wasn't measured by money. It was measured by laughter. Before leaving school, the 2 of you made a promise. No matter where life takes us, we'll never let money change who we are. At the time, it sounded easy. Neither of you knew how difficult that promise would become. Years passed, and life pulled both of you in different directions. You found a regular job, while he started a tiny business from a cramped apartment, with little more than an idea and endless determination. Most people ignored him. Some laughed at his dream. Others told him to quit, but he didn't. Then one day, everything changed. His company exploded. Investors lined up. News channels wanted interviews. Magazines called him a visionary. Millions quickly became billions. The same friend who once counted every dollar before buying dinner now owned more money than he could ever spend. And yet, the very first person he called was you. Almost overnight, you stepped into a world very few people ever get to see. Breakfast was prepared by private chefs. Cars weren't simply parked outside the house. They were displayed like works of art. Weekends no longer meant staying home. One weekend you were flying to Dubai. The next, relaxing on a private island. Hotels welcomed your friend before he even spoke. Restaurants closed entire floors just for his dinner. You met celebrities, world-famous athletes, and powerful business leaders. People you had only ever seen on television. For a while, it felt like you were living someone else's dream. And honestly, you loved every second of it. Who wouldn't? But slowly, something began to change. Not in him, in the people around you. Old classmates suddenly wanted to reconnect. Distant relatives remembered your number. Everyone wanted a favor. Everyone wanted an introduction. Some assumed you were rich too. Others became jealous. A few quietly disappeared from your life. Then another feeling appeared. Comparison. Your apartment suddenly felt too small. Your salary felt too small. Even your achievements felt too small. Not because your life had become worse, but because you spent every day standing next to extraordinary success. As his business grew, his free time disappeared. board meetings, international flights, charity events, product launches, interviews. His phone never stopped ringing. Sometimes weeks passed without seeing each other. Not because he forgot you, but because his world demanded more of him every single day. You started wondering if success really destroys friendships, or maybe it quietly stretches them until they barely recognize themselves. Then, one morning, your phone buzzed. "My birthday. I hope you'll come." The celebration wasn't at a hotel. It was at his mansion, the biggest party of the year. Luxury cars lined the entrance. Celebrities posed for photographs. Business leaders laughed over expensive drinks. A famous singer performed live. Every guest arrived carrying extravagant gifts, rare watches, designer artwork, and custom-made jewelry. Everything money could buy. You looked down at your own gift, a tiny package wrapped in plain brown paper. Compared to everything else, it looked almost embarrassing. For a second, you thought about leaving it in the car, but something told you not to. Hours later, your friend finally reached you. He smiled, hugged you, and carefully opened your small package. Inside was an old photograph. The two of you, 12 years old, sitting on the roadside and sharing a single plate of cheap street food because neither of you could afford your own. Both of you were laughing so hard that the picture had come out slightly blurry. For several long seconds, he didn't say a word. The music continued. People kept celebrating. But for him, the room had become completely silent. His smile slowly disappeared. His eyes filled with tears. Around him were gifts worth millions, but none of them made him stop, the way one old photograph did. He looked at you and quietly asked, "Do you remember this day?" You smiled. "Of course. We only had enough money for one plate, so we shared it." He nodded, still staring at the picture. Then he whispered, "I've been trying to remember this feeling for years." Later that night, the guests slowly left. The music faded, and the mansion became quiet. He walked onto the balcony, still holding that old photograph. Looking across the city lights, he finally spoke. "You know what's strange? Today, people gave me gifts worth millions. Watches, paintings, jewelry, things I'll probably never use, but the only gift I'll keep on my desk is this one." You looked at the photograph and quietly replied, "It's just an old picture." He shook his head. "No, it's proof that someone still remembers who I was. Before the headlines, before the money, before everyone wanted something from me." For a moment, neither of you spoke. The silence said everything. Then, without saying another word, he stepped forward and hugged you. Not the kind of hug people give at parties, the kind that comes from someone who has everything, except the chance to go back in time. As you walked toward the exit, you passed rows of supercars, private security, a mansion larger than most hotels, and gifts worth millions. Yet somehow, the most valuable thing inside that house was a faded photograph that cost almost nothing. As your car drove away, you looked back one last time. He was still standing on the balcony, holding that old picture. Not a luxury watch, not another award, not the keys to a supercar, just a memory. And in that moment, you finally understood something. Money can buy almost anything. A mansion, a private jet, a company, even an island. But there is one thing no amount of money can ever buy. Someone who remembers you. Before the world knew your name. Because real friendship isn't built after success. It's built long before success arrives. And in the end, when the applause fades, when the cameras disappear, when the headlines stop, the people who stayed with you before you had everything become the greatest wealth you'll ever own. Because some memories will always be worth more than billions. Before you go, I have one question for you. If your best friend suddenly became one of the richest people in the world, do you think your friendship would survive? Share your answer in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like and subscribe the channel.